So you just picked up Metaphor Refantazio and you need a helping hand. Well, you've come to the right place, as I have over 100 hours in the game already, so I have a bunch of tips and tricks to share with you. And with that out the way, let's get into this, yeah? Before you begin any battle, you could hit the enemy with your weapon to break their gauge. Each enemy requires a different amount of hits to break. By pressing your lock-on button, it'll make it easier to see the enemy's attack so you could dodge it. Usually when you see the white flash, you could dodge and avoid any damage. The lock-on system also works as a gap closer. Notice how far the enemy is? Instead of walking up to it, I could cover the distance with a dash thanks to the lock-on. Use this on fast-moving enemies like the elementals to catch up to them. If you sneak up behind them without being noticed, you could break the whole bar in one hit. After you break the gauge, you could enter battle with the on-screen squad battle prompt. What the game doesn't tell you is you don't have to go into battle right away. Instead, you could open up your menu by dodging and then pressing start. This is very helpful when you're using an archetype that has a poor overworld attack, like the mage archetype. The little twirls take forever to break some enemies, so what I do is swap to another archetype, break the gauge, dodge, open the menu, then swap back to the mage, and then begin the battle. You still get the advantage from breaking the enemy, so don't worry that you'll miss this window. When in battle, you could use your melee attacks to attack an enemy without using any resource. It's advised to only do this when the enemy is low on HP or you're low on resource. Most archetypes use MP, but the Brawler, for example, exchanges its HP for damage. Archetype skill do more damage, so this will be your main way to kill enemies. If you enter battle with the advantage, then the enemies will be stunned. They'll break out after one turn has passed or you hit them. I suggest killing one enemy at a time unless you have a skill to hit every enemy at once. This is known as AoE. The reason I suggest killing one enemy at a time is to reduce the amount of damage you'll take if you split your damage to multiple enemies and they get freed from the stun. The crystals on top are your turns. A big crystal can turn into a small crystal if you exploit an enemy's weakness or critically hit. These crystals are important because you need 2 minimum to do a synthesis skill. These are powerful attacks that take 2 crystals or more depending on the attack. Whatever resource it says next to it will be consumed by you and the partner. So if you don't have enough HP or MP, then you can't use the synthesis skill. Sometimes your turn may seem inefficient if your healer's up but no one needs healing. Instead of doing a pathetic melee attack, yield your turn. This will give the next ally to go their turn instead for a small crystal. This will only work if you have a big crystal left or 2 small crystals. If you only have 1 small crystal left, then either attack if you think you'll get the kill, otherwise guard. Guarding reduces the damage you take and prevents the enemy from exploiting your weakness. It's better to go into the back row and then guard. In the back row, you take 25% less damage. Just remember to go into the front row when attacking with physical skills, as there is a damage penalty in the back row. Magic users, however, can sit in the back row for free without any penalty. Now after battle, you'll get experience, archetype experience, mag, and money. Experience is needed to level up your character. Archetype experience is for the current archetype you have equipped. Mag is used to unlock more archetypes and inherit skills. Money is self-explanatory. If you happen to win a fight without taking any damage, then you'll get a bonus for each of these. So this is why I advise you to only defeat one enemy at a time, so you make the most of your free turn. Speaking of experience, we should go over what happens when you level up. Every time you level up, you get a random stat increase and 1 point to allocate to any of your choosing. The game gives us a brief description of what they do, and then barely for some. Like what is etc. Give me the full details. Well, if you're in the same boat, you're in the right place, as I'll go over each one in great detail so you can pick the best one for your playstyle. Strength raises our physical attack damage. This one's pretty simple, as it'll increase our melee damage that costs no resource and any archetype skill. This means any slashing, piercing, or striking skill. Synthesis skills are also affected by strength. This is what I do with 11 strength. Now I dump 30 points into strength and as you can see, the damage definitely increases. And for those wondering if magic would increase synthesis skills that have an element attached to it, here are the results after I dumped 31 points into magic. As you can see, we hit the same as if we had 11 strength, since damage is usually 0.98 or 1.02 apart, and it falls in that range. Magic raises our magical attack power. This will increase any elements such as fire, ice, electric, wind, light, or dark. In other Atlas titles, magic also increased your healing power, but I was surprised to find out it doesn't in Metaphor. These are what my basic heals are, and as you can see after putting 30 points into magic, my heal was the same. The only thing that changed how much I heal was the weapon I had equipped, so make sure your healer's weapon is up to date if they're not healing as much as you'd like. Endurance lowers the damage sustained from enemies. This mitigates damage from all sources, whether it's physical or magical. Here's how much damage I take with 13 points of endurance. And now with 43 endurance. I unfortunately didn't have anything left with a high damage output, but we could see it's roughly a 10% damage mitigation after 30 points, so we need a lot of points in endurance to notice a big difference. Agility raises our hit, evasion, and escape success rate. Agility is very important because you can miss with magic and Metaphor unlike other Atlas titles, so don't neglect this stat if you plan on going the magic route. Of course, strength builds will need more agility so they don't miss. On top of that, it increases your chance to dodge an enemy's attack, which makes them lose 2 turns, so this is very good. If you don't want to face tank every hit with the endurance build, consider becoming a dodge tank with agility. Now it does increase your chance to escape from battle, but you should never need to run if you subscribe to the channel. I'll be making a guide for every boss and making them look like easy mode like I've already done for the 2 demo bosses. What the brief description doesn't tell you is agility also affects your turn order. Ever notice the numbers next to your teammates? These aren't assigned randomly but based on who has the most and least agility. Adjust your agility through equipment so they go in the right order for a smoother experience. Luck raises item acquisition rate, and etc. This was the whole reason I made this video in the first place. I hate when games do this. So, what exactly does luck do besides increase the drop rate of items? Well, after playing Atlas games for almost 2 decades, luck also affects your chance to critically hit with physical attacks. This includes any physical synthesis skill. You could also recover from status effects faster. Metaphor has some nasty ones, so this is huge when you don't have the right accessory to prevent them. It will also increase your likelihood your status lands on the enemy. For example, the Brawler's Skullcracker will have the forget happen more often. There are items in the game that will permanently increase your stat, and we will eventually get to farm these, so if you messed up a few allocations, don't fret. Remember when I said at the start you get a random stat when leveling up? It's actually not random, but determined by your stat growth. During your recruitment process with Captain Klinger, he asks 2 sets of questions. The first one doesn't matter, but the second one does. This will determine which stat will have the most growth rate from now until level cap. By picking I'm stronger than I look, you'll be locked into the strength growth rate. After defeating the second egg, you'll level up and your stats will look like this. I've Got a Sharp Mind is focused towards magic. I Could Take a Lot of Punishment is for endurance. I'm Small But Quick will give you the agility growth rate. And lastly, I've Always Been Lucky is for luck. I wish I could say that. Now that we've gone over what each stat does and how to get the most of it, let's go over the stats on our equipment. The first option will be the current archetype you have equipped. If you unlock more than one for that character, you could swap it here instead of having to go back to Akademeia and talking to More. The second slot is your weapon. Weapons have an attack power. This combined with strength or magic will be the base of your damage for magical or physical archetype skills and your melee attack. I mentioned it when covering the magic stat, but a little refresher. The weapon power also affects how much your healer heals, so keep this up to date for an easier time. Hit is for hit chance. This combined with your agility will determine whether your attacks will land on the enemy. So if you got a really strong weapon in the future, but you're missing more than usual, it's probably because the hit chance is low, so keep an eye on that. Sometimes the weapons will come with a passive. For example, the cooling staff increases how much damage I do with ice related skills. The third slot is your armor. Def is short for defense. This with endurance will determine how much damage you'll mitigate when taking a hit from the enemy. EVA is short for evasion. This actually has a higher weight than agility's effect for dodging an enemy's attack. Usually gear with a high defense has low evasion and vice versa for balancing reasons. So if you're trying to be a dodge tank, look for gear with more evasion like the Grand Jacket. Our third slot is gear. This is unique to the archetype. For example, my mage can use the Silk Hat, but when I swap to the warrior, it's not there for me to select. The last slot is for your accessories. These are small stat increases right now, but this is where you'll have overpowered passives attached later. When going through your equipment, you may have noticed some saying, "Purify at a church." When you go there, he won't let you. That's because you need rank 2 in wisdom to do so. I'll be showing you the quickest way to get there, so you could get some OP loot like this. Start off by talking with a knowledgeable man and purchasing the Grand Cathedral status. This will help you once you go there. Afterwards, fast travel to Sunlimeo Street. Talk to this NPC for a side quest. Next, follow where I go and do this event. No matter what your choice is, you will always get +2 wisdom. Remember when we bought the notes from the knowledgeable man? Well, if you did so, he'll be here in the Hushed Honey Bee. Talk to him again and purchase the secret of the red grass chop. Now before we go and get the ingredients for the red grass roast, step outside and follow me. Did you know there is a secret shop in Sunshade Row? It can easily be missed since you could only enter at night. As you can see, she sells each elemental stone. These are really good when your MP is low, or that party member doesn't have the right element to exploit an enemy's weakness. This will allow you to keep up the tempo for a small price. On the second tab is where the goodies are at. Going from the bottom up is your status prevention. So if you're in an area with annoying status, consider buying a few to have an easier time. Okay, now for the meat of the shop, the Praetorian Cloth. Guarding normally costs a full turn or a big crystal. You can now guard for a small crystal, so this almost feels like you're getting a free turn, because if you use it at the start, you get another turn as long as your allies don't miss, nullify, or reflect their attack. This accessory is good on anyone, and I'll be purchasing one ASAP for my support units, who are usually just there to buff or heal the party. When that's not needed, I normally just yield my turn, so another ally could do something better. This can perhaps be viewed as a yield turn, since it produces a small crystal from a big one while reducing the damage they take. I may never take off this accessory from my supports because of this, especially in boss battles when I normally just guard to preserve their HP when their role isn't needed. This can now give my other allies the chance to guard when there's only one turn left before the boss is about to act and you know you won't kill them, so you may as well play safe and guard. Phantasmal Doll is probably one of the best offensive items I've ever seen in an RPG game this early. The wearer gets to act twice in a row. This on your damage dealer basically doubles their output, especially if you're exploiting weaknesses or critically hitting, which refunds the turn they use. You don't have to just use melees or skills, but you could do a back-to-back synthesis skill if you have the resource. This makes this item absolutely busted if used properly, but it could also be underpowered in the wrong hands. This item will definitely reward players who are diligent of their resources, as you will be going back to back, so be mindful of your HP and MP. Unlike the Praetorian Claw, I don't see this being universally good, and I wouldn't put this on my healer because if you need to heal back to back, you might want to reconsider the strategy you're using in the current fight. This can easily be overpowered or underpowered depending on the player's skill level. Okay, now that our detour is over, let's go back to that roast. Fast travel to the Grand Cathedral. Follow where I go. If you explored the cathedral, then you should already have a pristine clear water, but if you don't, buy one. Buy one meat if the enemy didn't drop any for you. Lastly, the red grass. he won't sell to you unless you bought the secret of the red grass from the knowledgeable man. Now go back to Honeybee, talk to Fabi, and make the red grass roast. When given the choice, pick the middle one. The first and last will give you +2 tolerance, while the middle will give you +3. We can now turn in the quest on the next day. It'll give you 4 wisdom, which is enough to reach rank 2. You can now go to the church and purify all your equipment. Enjoy the OP items. Now that you unlock Purify, let's touch on the virtue system real quick. In Grand Trad, there are events that you could do to increase each of them, but they do take up a time slot. In doing one of these events, you either take up the day or night, so only do these when you have free time, or you're trying to reach a specific rank, like we did for Wisdom. You don't want to do this non-stop each day or night, as you'll miss important deadlines for side quests or the main story. While we're on the topic of days, if you open up your calendar, you'll notice that each day divisible by 5 has a big bargain sale. That means all vendors in Grand Cathedral will sell at a discount. If you can, holding out until the 29th, we'll have a big sale on the armor and weapon shop. Remember that your weapon is the base of your damage and healing, so keeping these up to date is very important. Since we're already here, let's cover the appraisal option. During your journey, you'll acquire unappraised items. Simply going to the armor, item, or weapon shop has the option to appraise. But did you know no 2 appraisal is the same? That's right, I found out that they're not fixed on getting the same item each appraisal. The item is only obtained once you appraise it and not locked in when you find the item. In other words, you could save and reload your save file until you get the desired outcome. Here, let me show you. When appraising the Muddle Blade, I got the Iron Sword or the Iron Greatsword. The Rusted Longarm either gave me the Iron Greatsword, the Iron Lance, Silver Lance, or the Cooling Staff. As you can see right here, the last 2 are way better than the first 2. Rusted Armor turned into the Grand Jacket, Iron Cuirass, Apprentice Shirtcoat, or Silver Cuirass. Mundane Threads also had the Grand Jacket and Apprentice Shirtcoat in its pool, but it also has the better options with the Researcher's Coat or Sanctioned Mantle. The Rusted Bracers were either iron or silver gauntlets, so as you can see, each appraisal has a pool of 2 minimum to maybe 4 items. This pool can get even bigger as we get deeper in the game, so you definitely want to save before appraising. And for anyone wondering if the loot changes depending on which store you went to appraise, it didn't. If we step outside and go here, you'll be at the Mag Converter NPC. If you're short on money but you have a lot of mag, consider converting it for cash. But before you do this, hold out until the weather is bad. During bad weather, the conversion rate is higher. While you can use excess mag for money, you do need to spend it and more in Akademia to keep your archetypes up to date. So let's go there. Studying an archetype allows you to equip it anytime in the equipment menu. Purchase new ones as you get them, as it seems the game is balanced around the new areas with this in mind. Inherit skill is such a cool feature. For those of you who played Bravely Default or Octopath Traveler, you'll be right at home. For a chunk of mag, you could take any skill or passive from one archetype and add it to another. This will allow some insane builds. For example, you could bring the wind or light element to mage, allowing it to cover another element with its massive magic stat. While we only have 1 slot, we will eventually get more as we level up our supporters that correspond with the archetype, so do their quests as they pop up. Once you finish Moore's quest of having a healer at level 10, you can now open up this menu anywhere in the game. Another quality of life Atlas added to Metaphor was the hero's Leaf of Light. Once you hit level 20, you don't have to stop using that archetype because you hit the level cap. You could actually keep using it, and when you acquire 1,000 more experience, you get this item. This gives 1,000 archetype experience to any archetype of your choosing, so you could continue to use your favorite archetype or team composition without feeling guilty that you're wasting experience. Later in the game, we'll be able to do bounties in the recruitment center, so if you're short on money, here's another source to get them. Hopefully you found this beginner's guide helpful, and if there's any unanswered questions, then ask down below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider checking out this one right here. Until the next video, I'll see ya.